And Ron, do you mind if I borrow your pen as well?
I don't mind. I'm
Thank you.
unable to write.
Thank you.
Before I go into my workshop, can I please get a round of applause for all the speakers this morning? I thought everyone did an excellent job. Stories are such an important part of communication. We all tell stories. We tell stories with our family. We tell stories with our coworkers. Good speeches almost always have a story embedded in them somewhere. We can do things to help improve the quality of our stories. If you can step back from a story and understand it a little better, what makes for really impactful stories, you can sprinkle these in like spice to your stories. There's a few aspects I want to talk about today. The first, what I think is the most important thing about storytelling, is the emotional journey. If you were to draw a line and you had the emotional level as the story goes from the beginning to the end, I think the perfect story starts here, goes down here, comes back up here, higher than when you started. That's the perfect emotional journey for a story. You start with a situation, you quickly turn into a problem. You move to a solution, a realization. That should be the emotional journey. Do not tell a story that ends here. Do not tell the story that ends with you crying and your father's dead body in your hand. That's okay element to have in a story, but don't you dare end the story with that. It's okay to bring the audience emotions down. You're bringing it down to show the magnitude of the story, but you have to bring the audience back up. You can't leave them down. It's your responsibility as a speaker. Tied very closely to that is, why are you telling the story? What's the lesson? What's the moral? If the story is simply, this thing happened to me, and audience, you can figure out why it matters, it's a bad story. Good stories are ones where they happen to you and it mattered. You realized something. You learned something. Not only did you learn something, but the audience, by hearing the story, they can learn something too. Not just, this guy slipped on a banana peel. Why tell a story? I think it's funny, he hurt himself. That's not a good story. Good story has relatable elements that the audience can get. If I tell you, never judge a book by its cover, that goes in one ear and out the next. If I tell you a story, a deep story that has good characters and an emotional impact, and the end is simply the lesson, don't judge a book by its cover, the story's going to stick with you. The lesson's going to stick with you. It's much more impactful. It's why we tell stories. Okay, you don't learn from me making a statement. As a teenager, I would often look up these words of wisdom from famous people, but they'd be gone. They're not in depth in me. Stories do that. They drive things down deep. Okay, so you should have an emotional journey. You should have a message to your story. Okay, from here I want to talk about details that cause all these things to pop. You need those first two things though. An emotional journey where you tell a lesson or have a moral. Okay. Good stories are vibrant. They connect. They feel real. They insert the listener into the story. You feel like you lived the story. All good movies are like this, by the way. If you're watching a good movie, it's not happening to the main character, it's happening to you. You naturally insert yourself in the role of the main character. Good storytelling brings you in. And that's what you want to do. You want to bring the listener in. You do this by making it real. Characters are the most important elements of your story. The most important rule in storytelling is show, don't tell. Okay. If I say, I work for this boss and he was a real tyrant. I'm telling you that. I'm not showing it to you. If I tell you that, well, I was working at this company and this guy comes in 30 seconds late. Instantly the guy says, oh, sorry boss, the bus had a flat tire, I don't mean to. Boss says, go home, we don't want you here today.
Oh.
That tells you he's a real tyrant. Me saying he's a real tyrant, that doesn't mean anything to you. Me giving you an example, a specific example, it's going to hit. Okay? With your characters, you should have dialogue and voice. Don't say, he told me to go home. Make a voice that's a little different from yours. Don't make it comical if it's not a comic story. Now, if it's a funny story, you can make a comical voice. Any change of your voice will signal to the audience, I'm speaking as someone else. I like to switch my posture when I'm speaking to someone else. So I was talking to my mom and she said, I told her I'm thinking about taking a year off. Ron, you know, if you take a year off, you might not go back. Like, no one here thinks that's my mom's voice. But you know it's not mine. It's enough to tell the audience, I'm speaking as my mom. And that saves me from having to say, and my mom told me, the worst version of that is, my mom told me I shouldn't do it. That's just describing it. I want to bring the audience into the moment, as if it's happening to them. So I speak in her voice. And I don't have to connect all the dots for you. Simply going from, I told my mom, no interleaving words, no connecting words. Simply, you know, Ron, change of posture, change of voice. That's enough for the audience to sense a character. When you write your story the first time, you might write it as, my mom told me I shouldn't do it. Go over it again. Ask yourself, what words can she use? What voice can I use? Okay. The first draft shouldn't be the last draft. That's all you do is you find your characters and say, okay. It doesn't have to be every character every single time. Key characters, make sure they're speaking their own dialogue, their own voice. That's going to make them pop. Another way to immerse the listener into your story is your five senses. Wherever you can, hit them in their senses. Do you mind if I take up
Oh, no, not at
one
all.
element of your story and say how I would like to spice it up a bit?
Please, thank you.
Okay. And so you want the five senses, you want to engage the user. So at one point in what I thought was a key moment in Dia's speech, he said, I saw the hospital sign. Now this is a key moment, so I want to involve the senses. I think it should be something like, fear gripped me. Sweat started to drip down my brow. As the last of my hope started to fade, I saw it, like an angel glowing down from heaven. The glowing H of the hospital. We've all seen the glowing H of a hospital. We know what that means. When you say the hospital sign, you're not engaging with the visuals of what it looks like to you, or the emotional impact of what that felt like to you. It's a key moment of the speech. And so key moments, you hit them with the senses. If you can talk about, I have a speech where I talk about our second date. Rather than talking about, we went to the carnival and it was loud, it's ding, 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 whiz, 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 the bells and the lights were everywhere, they're assaulting our eyes. Even the choice for how to speak that